Mr. Thompson, you are in court today in hopes of saving your 11-year marriage. Your wife has a newborn, 4-month-old Micah Pate-Thompson, who you hope is your baby, but say your doubts are overwhelming. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mrs. Pate-Thompson, you hope and pray the results reveal that your husband is Micah's father for the sake of your family and your marriage. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Thompson, tell us about the current status of your relationship.
Yeah, the current status of our relationship is rocky. You know, we don't sleep in the same bedroom. We haven't slept in the same bedroom in years. We haven't had sex probably in about 7, 8 months. You know, and it's just, you know, she don't like to cook, she don't like to clean, she don't like to work. So it's a lot going on other than Micah. So it's, you know, like I said, every marriage is not perfect, but it's a lot going on.
You want this baby to be your biological child, but you truly doubt.
I would love for him to be my son. You know, if he wasn't mine, I don't know if I could raise another man's child, but with everything going on and the connection that me and Micah has together, I can't let another child, especially another black child, grow up without a father.
So, Ms. Pate-Thompson, this has to be difficult.
It is. It's very difficult. You know, I want Micah to be his son. I don't want to lose my best friend. We've been together for so long, and, you know, I just don't want to lose him.
All right. Well, take me back. I want to understand how this relationship began. Certainly, at some point, you all were happy together.
Yes. We met in college. We had a class together. And he sat behind me, cracking jokes, trying to copy off my test. Next thing you know, we were talking and we were together in a relationship. And it was good. We were inseparable. You couldn't see him without seeing me.
I mean, that just sounds storybook. It does. So, Mr. Thompson, the bottom line is you met and you were very happy together.
Yes, ma'am.
You decided to get married.
She ended up eventually moving in with me and my family. You know, in a short time after, we found out that she was pregnant. We told my mother the news, and my mother was like, hey, you guys might as well go ahead and get married. You know, so we were like, you know, okay, you know, so we were trying to figure out a date. So my mother had this idea to get married while everybody was already at the house, because in that same month, we had a birthday party for my mother, my niece.
It was a ghetto wedding, Your Honor.
It was
like very ghetto.
It was like a hood romantic love story.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, one of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
The minister who married us was an ordained minister. Okay.
But don't nobody know the minister. It was like a friend of somebody else's friend, and the lady didn't know us, we didn't know the lady. So we was like,
before we even got married, she was trying to do a quick little marriage counseling before we even got married.
So it was like, so we did like a little 15-minute counseling session in the bedroom.
Oh my goodness. Counseling in the bedroom. That doesn't sound right. Okay, go ahead.
It was a lot of stuff going on. It was birthday cakes, it was nachos, it was drinks, it was...
I got married in a jogging suit. My maid of honor had on a matching jogging suit.
I had
He had a t-shirt,
I had t-shirt, jeans, and Timberlands on, and I was drunk. You know what I'm saying? It was, yeah, I was kind of toasted.
It sounds like it was an interesting and entertaining day.
Yeah, it wasn't the most ideal situation, but we made the best out of what we could do.
But absolutely, and that's what it's all about when you're coming together to build a life.
Right.
So where did this go wrong?
What went wrong was when me and LaToya first started getting into marriage and stuff like that, I had found out she was doing some things that she shouldn't have been doing. Text messaging, meeting up with guys and stuff like that. So when I confronted her, she said it wasn't true. So when she said it wasn't true, I found out otherwise. I had to get a DNA test on my first two boys by her. We married, but every time while we're in a marriage, and every time you get pregnant, I gotta get a DNA test.
I was gonna ask the same question.
You know, I don't understand.
What happened in this relationship?
Honestly, Your Honor, I think when we first got married, we really weren't ready to be married.
You didn't understand the depth of the commitment and the responsibility of marriage.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is why I felt went wrong in the marriage. Me and LaToya had ample opportunities where I came to LaToya and I was like, listen here, you're not doing certain things in the marriage that should be going on. You're not working. If you're not gonna work, I need you to cook, clean, we need to have sex on the regular, things like that.
But was it just on her to fix, or was it both of you all?
But the thing about it is she really don't talk, so she don't tell me my faults. If you tell me my faults, okay, let's communicate, let's work on this, but you never told me my faults.
So what you were saying, I'm expressing to you what I need, and then I need you to express to me what you need.
Right, she don't reciprocate it, she don't say nothing to me. So in my eyes, I'm not the perfect dude, but let me know what I'm doing wrong.
So where did this go wrong to the point that we are here in paternity court?
It went wrong when he decided to leave, Your Honor.
Yeah, I left. I did leave.
If you want more episodes of Paternity Court, make sure to subscribe and click on the notification bell.
When I left, she said she was gonna work on herself. Me and her had ample
While he was
conversations
with somebody else.
about her working on herself. She was working on herself because she deleted me off social media. I found out she started adding all these other dudes to her social media page.
Because you were gone. You were living with somebody else.
Were you living with somebody else, Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, I was.
So why shouldn't she move on?
She didn't want to move on. She said she was gonna work on what she needs to work on.
Were you all planning to get a divorce?
Nah.
Yes.
So you just gonna go move in with somebody else and still think you're gonna be married?
When I said something about a divorce, she didn't want a divorce.
As soon as he left and I found out that he was staying with somebody else and they were supposed to be in a relationship, I printed up the divorce papers myself.
That's after I left her for the third time.
All right, so this relationship definitely is in trouble. At what point did you find out she was with someone else?
When I came back, we was under understanding that I was gonna come back and we was gonna work on our marriage. She told me that she was going to Atlanta for a job interview. I said, what job interview you going to? And she named a couple jobs off and I said, okay. So me being me in that conversation, when me and her got done talking, I got on the phone with my mother and I was like, she not going to no Atlanta for no job interview. She going to Atlanta to do what she was gonna do. But I told my mother, I was like, you know what? I was like, if we gonna start over, I'm gonna be a man about the situation because I was just with somebody. I'm gonna let her go ahead and get it out of her system. So she goes to Atlanta. Me and my other two boys, we went out, dinner, movie, we out hanging out. She called me, I missed the call. Called her back, she didn't answer, I'm texting her. She was texting, but she not calling. She said she in a job interview. It don't make no sense. Why are you texting me in a job interview, but you can't pick your phone up? So when she didn't call back that night, I knew it was a problem. She didn't call back until the next day.
Okay.
And I was like, well, why you couldn't call me, Bob? Why you couldn't call me? She was like, well, we went out and my friend took my phone and she said, we out, so you don't need to be on the phone. I'm like, man, you married, you got kids, and what woman gonna tell you some trash like that?
So once she came back, how did you find out that she had been sleeping with someone else?
Well, I already knew what she was going to do. I didn't have no proof, but I knew what she was going to do. Now,
is that what you were going to do, Ms. Thompson?
I can't even lie about it. Yeah, it was.
Now that's the first time she admitted that.
Well, that's what we do in this courtroom. We get to the truth. So now we know. So you were intimate with somebody else during that weekend because this was him coming off of being with somebody else, living with somebody else.
Right, Your Honor.
You did.
Yes.
And so when you came back, you all were supposed to clean the slate and be together.
Right.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then when do you find out you're pregnant?
Hold on. She went back to Atlanta.
Oh.
2 weeks later.
For a follow-up interview?
Yeah, she said a second interview. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to leave nothing out because I don't want anybody to say.
I know that's right. You go ahead and prove your case, Mr. Thompson. Go ahead.
You go back to Atlanta the second time. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, once again, I know what you're going to do. So I was like, let me go ahead and let you go so I can compile me a little bit of evidence. So in the email, there's nothing in there. And the phone bills is one Atlanta phone number that keep popping up. And I researched the phone number and it's coming back to a gentleman. So when she finally called me, I'm like, okay, Toya, so what you out there doing? I was like, so I'm looking at the phone bill and this one Atlanta number keep popping up and it's from a male. She was like, one of my friends. Yeah, it's a male. So I was like, so that's who you out there with? She was like, nah. Now, mind you, I'm sitting on the couch with my kids watching TV. Every car they just driving by, they jumping up. Is that mom? Is that mom? They waiting on her to come home. You know what I'm saying? I know what she out there doing, but I can't tell my kids that.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true, Your Honor, but he skips over all the stuff that he did. Besides the going back and forth all summer between me and the other girl, and then moving all the way to Alabama with the girl and leaving me with the kids. But he wanted to talk about one time when he had the kids and they were looking for me. They were looking for you all the time.
Let me tell you.
And he failed to mention while he was doing all that research trying to figure out who I was talking to, he failed to tell anybody that he was engaged to this girl.
What?
While he was still married. And
What?
It's on her Facebook, so he can't even lie about it.
You asked another girl to marry you while you're still married to your wife?
I did.
Now, see, he never admitted that. When I asked him about it, how could I be engaged? I'm still married. That's what he told me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still gonna say it, but I did.
Mr. Thompson, obviously you needed more than 15 minutes of marriage counseling, so you understand that you can't ask somebody else to marry you when you're still married.
It was a lot going on in between
Oh,
that
this
time.
is a lot. And so let's fast forward to the point when you found out you were pregnant with Micah. Who did you tell?
The first person I told was the other guy.
You did?
Yes. The timeline and the way the conception and everything, I was thinking it was the other guy because I wasn't with Marcus at the time.
We had sex one time in that time frame. I don't know if it was before the first time she went to Atlanta or when she came back, but she said it was another time, but I don't know. I was drunk anyway, so I don't know which time it was.
You got to stop drinking.
Man.
Yeah, he do.
We was on the phone talking. And I guess it came to a conversation where we was like, hey, if we're gonna make this work, we gotta do, we gotta, work these out. She was like, well, you might not want to be with me no more after I tell you this. I was like, Toy, I already know what it is. I was like, you pregnant. You know what I'm saying? She was like, yeah. Who's baby daddy? She said, right off the jump, she said it was him.
She said it was the other guy.
Right off top.
So she admitted it.
Yeah.
And now she's in court to prove that you are the biological father.
Yeah, because I'm only thinking that because he don't want nothing to do with her.
Now you've developed a relationship with Mike.
Yeah. I'm in there. It was a struggle for me to even get her to let me come to a doctor's appointment. And she was just like, well, I didn't think you want to go because of the situation. I'm like, listen, man, at the end of the day, I'm a man before anything. And if I'm going to be that boy's father, I don't want to miss out on nothing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it took her a minute to let me go to the doctor's appointment. So I went to the doctor's appointments and stuff like that. I missed the birth of the baby because I was out of town for work. When I came back from out of town, I went straight to the hospital. I went straight to the hospital. I was watching the baby. I was doing all type of things. The only thing I didn't do was sign the birth certificate.
You didn't?
No, ma'am.
Because you had that doubt and it was substantiated by what your wife had told you.
Yes, ma'am.
That she believed it was the other gentleman's child.
Yes, ma'am. But when as he got older, my features in Micah is starting to come out a little bit.
You start seeing yourself. What is that?
Yeah. This is a picture, a side-by-side picture of me and Micah.
Let me see that. Jerome, will you pass me that?
So as I'm looking, everybody say we got the same nose, the same forehead, and they say as the older he get, they say we look alike, and he look like the bigger he gets, he look like my youngest son.
Even my mother, when she came up to the hospital, she was like, "Are you sure he's not Marcus, baby?" And I said, "Why you say that?" And she was like, "He looks just like him, and the rest of the kids."
And so now you're really confused.
I would love for him to be my son, but there's too much doubt. It's a lot going on.
I'm ready for the results. Jerome? These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics and they read as follows. In the case of Thompson versus Pate-Thompson, when it comes to 4-month-old Micah Pate-Thompson, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Thompson, you are not the father. I know that's not what you wanted to hear, sir. How are you feeling in this moment?
I had already accepted the situation when I knew he wasn't, but it's to actually know he not mad just hurts a little bit more. The other dude don't want nothing to do with him, but like I said, I can't let another child grow up without a father.
Ms. Thompson, I'm sure you were hoping that it was your husband's child.
Yes, sure.
You can see that when you're not ready for marriage and to communicate how you need to in order to sustain a marriage, things can go wrong and you end up going outside of your marriage for comfort and companionship that you need to seek within your marriage. And Mr. Thompson, you know, when you speak so beautifully about not wanting another child to grow up without a father, I'm proud of you for saying that. Mr. Brooks, you've summoned your ex-girlfriend, Ms. Gooley, to paternity court to prove that you are the father of her 18-year-old son, Mr. McDonald.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Gooley, you admit you cheated on Mr. Brooks all those years ago and are here today to prove to Mr. Brooks that he is not the father of your son.
Yes, Your Honor.
Both of you are desperate for these answers because you've recently been reunited with Mr. McDonald, whom you lost custody of at the tender age of 1. Mr. Brooks, why do you believe Mr. McDonald is your son?
The day he was born, I took her to the hospital. I drove her to the hospital. I was there. I watched him cut her open. I watched him pull my baby out. I watched him cry. They couldn't get him quiet. I told the doctor and the nurse, give me my baby. And I said, E-man, this is Daddy. I'm here, baby. And he shot up. And at that run, I knew he was my son from day one.
You were in a relationship with her at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Gooley,
Yes, ma'am.
how long was that relationship?
10 years.
Was it a committed relationship?
No, Your Honor.
It was not.
No.
Did
You're
you
lying.
consider yourselves boyfriend and girlfriend?
I mean, yeah,
Yes.
we were boyfriend and girlfriend, but I mean, I wasn't faithful.
During the pregnancy, did you ever tell Mr. Brooks that he may not be
No,
the
ma'am.
biological father?
No, Your Honor, I didn't.
You allowed him to believe that he was Mr. McDonald's biological father the entire pregnancy.
Yes, Your Honor, I did. I
Why is that?
Because he wants to be there for my child, but he knew that there was another man that was
No,
at
I
my
didn't.
house all the time.
That's a lie.
And he used to take Fred to work. and
How
come
you gonna
back
take
to
me
the
where I had
house.
my own damn car?
Mr. Brooks,
Excuse
I
me, I'm
need you to
sorry.
watch your
I'm
language.
sorry.
So wait a minute. There was another man that was always at your house.
Yes, Your Honor.
You
phone call.
believe that man is your son's biological father.
Yes, Your Honor. It's when I found out.
What was the nature of your relationship with that man?
Tell the truth.
He was just a friend, really. I mean, someone that was there for me when Mr. Brooks wasn't.
I
And
was
if you
always
think
there.
if you think he's your child's father, you obviously were having a sexual relationship with him
Yes, Your Honor.
without using any protection.
Yes, Your Honor.
When she told you she was pregnant, there was no doubt in your mind that you were the father?
No. It was one of the greatest days of my life when she told me she was pregnant. And I just wanted to be a great father. And I got pictures.
Let me see those pictures, please, sir. Jerome, will you
I've been
hand them
having
to me?
these pictures with me for 17 years. She don't have none. Matter of fact, I got about 60 pictures, and she's not in none of them.
These are pictures you've carried for 17 years,
Yes.
believing that you are Mr. McDonald's biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
So at some point, you say he was taken away from you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Take me to that day and please tell
I
me.
can remember that day just good, January the 23rd, because she called me, told me, get the kids out the house. I said, for what? I said, they finna go to my cousin anyway. I took the kids down to my cousin, and that thing, 3 police cars pulled up and defects. They told me they come to get the kids. You're not getting my kids.
They came and got the kids in the first place because Mr. Brooks is the one that called defects on me because he wanted
How
to
am I
take
called
my
defects on?
kids.
That's my family.
He
Why am I break my own family
wanted
up
to take my
for?
kids away from me. That's why
a lie.
defects was called. And I know this for a fact
Renee.
because the lawyer that was representing my case
Case?
told me.
I ain't calling them defects.
His other family member called defects.
Well, why you want to blame me? I don't call.
I'm not blaming you. I'm stating a fact.
You the one who was out there in the street, not me. I'm home taking care of the kids, paying the bills. What you out there doing?
When did you pay a bill?
When did you have a job?
So let me be clear. You submitted to the court. At this time, you were both battling and having significant challenges with drugs.
No.
Her. No. Tell me what you do.
It don't matter. I don't do it now.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it was deemed at that time that the children should be removed
Yes.
from your home.
No.
The reason why my
Well,
kids-
Mr. Brooks, something had to be going on, because if, in fact, Ms. Gooley was struggling at that time with drugs and the children could not be with her, if the child's biological father was present and able to take care of him,
He
why?
would not legitimize my child because, see, that's why I don't think he's the father. If he was the father, my mother was willing to pay for him to legitimize my son, then why didn't he do it? Because he was scared of that DNA test because he is not the dad.
Everything. I did the paperwork myself. I went and paid for it.
Okay, well, why is he not legitimized?
The day they came and got him, this is the day I took the picture. This is the last day.
So this is a picture of the exact day your son was taken from you.
January 23rd. And she wasn't nowhere to be found. She'd been gone for like 3 days.
I was in jail, Your Honor.
When they came to get your son, were you there?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened?
2 of them grabbed me on each side of my arm, and the other one grabbed the baby from me. And I struggled with them, but they slammed me to the car, but they didn't arrest me. And that was the last time I seen them.
You describe with a lot of emotion, Mr. Brooks, that day the young boy you believe to be your biological son was taken from you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Gooley, at what point did you decide to tell him? Because you had said, admittedly, I let him believe this was his biological child.
A year ago.
It was a year ago?
No, it was not.
Yeah, it
Your
was.
Honor. As soon as that baby came out my stomach, I looked at Fred, and the first thing out my mouth was, "Is he yours?"
You a lie.
In the hospital?
You a lie.
Before they even cut the cord.
You didn't say nothing.
Wait a minute. So when they pulled the baby out, you looked at him and said, "Is he yours?"
Yes, I did.
You said that because what? You wanted him to look at the baby and see if he thought it looked like him?
Yes, Your Honor. This ain't the
I'm a
first
good
time he's
man.
went through something. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I give you that.
I take care of all mine.
You an excellent man. But he claims my daughter, that's not his child. He claims someone else's daughter, that's not his child. He claims my grandson. He even takes care of my grandson, and I give him that. He is an excellent person. But you know what? Truth be told, after 10 years of us being together and not using condoms or any kind of protection, why did I get pregnant?
So are you saying you don't believe Mr. Brooks can even father a child?
I don't think so, no.
Mr. Brooks, do you have any other children?
No. I know Demarion is mine. I know that. That's my boy.
I'd like to hear from Mr. McDonald. Jerome, will you please escort him into the courtroom?
Yes, sir. We're going to have you go right up to the witness stand, sit next to the judge.
Thank you for joining us today, Mr. McDonald.
Pleasure.
I want to ask you a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can just tell the truth to me, and that's all I need to know. I want to know, first, Mr. Brooks states that he believes he's your biological father.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe Mr. Brooks is your father?
Yes, ma'am.
You do? That's been your understanding your whole life?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What was it like when you were finally reunited with your mother?
It was kind of nervous at the beginning, but as we sat down and talked during the visit, it kind of got like, okay, and then we just started talking ever since then.
She stood in this courtroom today and mentioned that another man, not Mr. Brooks, another man could potentially be your biological father. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, ma'am. It was a man on Facebook saying that he was my biological father, and I text back and said, okay, I really don't know what to say or what to do because there's another man in my life that thinks he's my father.
Mr. Brooks, were you aware someone reached out to him on Facebook?
Yeah, she told me.
How did you feel when you heard that?
You know, I didn't want to hear it. I don't see no other man being his father but me. That's it. That's all I got to say about it. That's mine.
Ms. Gooley, as you stand here in court, are you still convinced that this other gentleman and not Mr. Brooks is Mr. McDonald, your son's biological father?
I don't see how he can be.
You don't see how Mr. Brooks can be?
No, ma'am.
Why is he not even a possibility in your mind if you were intimate with him?
we were together for so long and I never got pregnant before. I don't understand.
God said one time.
You know, and he's up here like he wants to be this great father and everything. He ain't done nothing for Demarion since Demarian's been back in our lives. He ain't done nothing. He sitting up here like trying to fake the funk and stuff, you know.
I ain't faking
yes,
nothing.
you are.
I ain't faking
yes,
nothing,
you are.
Renee.
You didn't even want to take your son downtown yesterday. I did it. Okay?
I was in pain.
It don't matter if I was in pain, if my leg was broken.
You know, I was in a car wreck.
I don't care. I don't care. That's what matters right now. You don't never spend no time with him. I live in Texas and I spend more time with this boy and talk to him more than you do.
I work.
You don't work. You ain't never had a job, Fred.
Mr. Brooks and Miss Gooley, do you understand? You all are just arguing. Right up front of the young man.
Mr. Brooks trying to make me look like I'm such a bad person.
That's a lie.
But Miss Gooley, let's really.
I mean, hold on. Take care of my kids.
Hold on.
And that's what I was doing.
Hold on. Before you begin to say Mr. Brooks said this, he said this, you admitted in court. Let's just keep it real. You admitted that you told him that he was the father and strung him along for quite a long time before you admitted that he may not be the biological father.
But he's saying I admitted it last year. That's a lie. That's a lie. I admitted it way before.
Okay, and then once you admit it, you're standing in court today saying he's not Mr. McDonald's biological father, and yet you are angry with him and disappointed in him because he doesn't do what a father should do.
Because he's saying he's the father and he wants to do this and he wants to do that. Well, if you want to be that boy's father, show him. Don't sit here and speak words out your mouth.
I show him.
No, you don't.
I talk to him. I let him know.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't, Fred.
Yes, I do. I might not talk to him every day. You ain't got to talk every day to get your point across.
I'm not trying to get a point across.
I'm looking at both of you. I look at Mr. Brooks when he tells the story about the day that, Mr. McDonald, Demarion was taken from you both. I could see the pain in his eyes. He's shaking sometimes. He's perspiring. You can see his nerves are shot.
I know.
He really wants to be this child's biological father. He doesn't have any other children. Mr. McDonald, are you prepared for these results either way? Have you thought about how this may turn out, how you might feel? Have you prepared yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
What have you said to yourself? If the result ends up being that Mr. Brooks is your biological father, would you like to have a relationship with him?
Yes, sir.
You do?
Yes, ma'am.
And if he's not, do you have any idea, or do you even want to find the other gentleman that your mother said might be your biological father?
If he's not my father, I would like to know who my father is.
I think it's time we go to the results. These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics and they read as follows. In the case of Brooks versus Gooley, when it comes to 18-year-old Demarion McDonald, it has been determined by this court. Mr. Brooks, you are his father.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
How's it feel?
Great.
Look at my boy. This is my boy.
Feels good, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You feel real good. The only blood I have. Oh, God. Thank you, Judge. Really,
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, man.
That's why we're here. This is why we love to come to work every day, right, Jerome?
Absolutely.
Miss Gooley, are you happy for your son?
Yes, I am.
Good.
I'm more happy for Fred.
Oh. A lot of the anger I saw in your eyes, when I read the result, I could see that kind of melt away.
He's my friend.
I think that is such a great way to start. Mr. Alexander, you claim the defendant's mother led you to believe that no other man except you could be Ms. Washington's biological father. You are 100% certain she is your daughter and plan to prove that today. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, it is true.
Ms. Washington, you say you don't believe that Mr. Alexander is your biological father because your mother never mentioned his name. But now, after 42 years of uncertainty, you want the paternity drama to end today. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Alexander, you say you are 100% sure you are the father.
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
Explain.
Because my mother led me to believe that in the time that we were together, that I'm the only man that she ever has associated with it.
Oh, that you were the only man that she was intimate with.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, what else did her mother say?
She said that I was the father of her child.
All right, and you were led to believe that, and you never believed anything different?
No, ma'am, I didn't, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Alexander, how did it feel when you finally heard this young woman's voice, the young woman you believe is your biological daughter? How did it feel?
I felt real good, Your Honor, because I had my daughter search for it and went on Facebook to find it, and I was so happy that I finally got in touch with my daughter. And I just wanted us to all be together and collaborate together and be as one family.
All right. So, Miss Washington, I see the tears in your eyes, honey. What are you feeling? This has to be very emotional for you.
I don't believe it. He contacted me at 29. Like, you missed out. If I was, you would have been there. Not at 29. And now I'm 42.
Can you take me to the day you first heard about Mr. Alexander?
I was about 29 years old. One night, my phone rang. I answered, and he's like, I'm looking for Tish. And I'm like, who is this? And he's like, I'm your dad. I'm like, no, no, you're not. Like, I told him I never heard of him before. Like,
He just says, I'm your dad.
yes. And he mentioned my granddaddy and my grandma. But I'm 29. Where have you been? My mom passed. He wasn't there. My granddaddy, my grandma passed. He wasn't there. So I try to respect him, but it hurts. And then, he got to talking to me, and I'm like, but where have you been? I'm 29. Then I had 3 kids. So now, today, I have 9.
Wow, you have 9 children.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Well, to Miss Washington's point, what took you so long?
Exactly.
I had left a town because my mother was real sick. And I just wanted to be around her because she had died on me. And I just wanted to be around her. But I had stayed with my mother for a while and comfort my sisters and brothers because they were so hurt over the illness of my mother.
Why didn't you come and find me? 29. Like, I could see if I was 9, 19, but 29. And your mom wasn't sick when you contacted me. I thought your mom just recently passed.
She's been dead. She's been dead a while, young.
How long is, I thought it's only been a few years.
It's been about 9
Mom been gone 22 years. You was not there, like.
I know.
Did you hear about her mother's passing?
No, ma'am. No, Your Honor. I haven't. I wasn't in town.
And so who did your mother tell you your father was?
It was another guy. She was telling me the whole time that that was my father. So, I mean, I was on the phone like every day trying to get a hold of him. And then one day I got a hold of him and he wanted to meet up. I had to catch the bus. I was about 18 in. I had to catch the city bus to go meet him.
Take your time, honey.
I met him at the restaurant. We sat down and I was telling him that my mom said that he was my dad, and he was like, he didn't know, but he had a wife and kids already, and he didn't want to mess that up. So I was like, I'm ready to go. So he was like, I'll give you a ride home, and I took the ride home, and I never saw him or talked to him again.
Oh, honey. So you take the bus down there only to get there and him to basically say to you, I don't want to pursue this relationship. Did he say that he didn't believe he was your father, or did he just say, I don't want to pursue this because I have a wife and a family and I can't?
He have a wife and he got kids and he didn't want to mess it up. So
I'm sorry. That is awful to hear. So, Mr. Alexander.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the court about the relationship you had with Miss Washington's mother? How did you meet?
We met through a friend of mine named Larry, this gentleman right here. He introduced me to...
Your witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Introduced you?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'd like to hear from your witness. Please stand, sir.
All right, Your Honor.
Hello. State your name for the record.
Larry White.
Mr. White, thank you for joining us today. Mr. Alexander has just testified that you introduced him to Miss Washington's mother.
I did. I knew her, Annie, and I owned a restaurant in Phoenix, Arizona. And they would always come by the cafe, and James was there working for me at that time. And so Gladys would come by with her auntie, and I introduced him to Gladys. And in '76, we moved to a new location. James had left me, too. He went somewhere else. He didn't work at my new location, okay? So the next time I hear James, he's all proud. He said, man, have you seen Gladys? I said, no, I haven't. He said, I got a baby by her, which shocked me. I didn't know that myself.
Really?
He said, I got a child by Gladys. So he was excited and happy, but hurt that he couldn't find her.
But it is your testimony that he was looking for his little girl.
He was.
Oh, ma'am.
He talked about her.
Oh, ma'am.
He talked about this young lady here. When he came back, Gladys had the baby. And then she presented the baby to him and said, this is your child.
So, Ms. Washington, when you're hearing this testimony, I mean, Mr. White seems to remember specifically all of the conversations between him and Mr. Alexander, the fact that Mr. Alexander spent time with you as a baby. What are you feeling, honey?
it's hard to believe because I used to see Larry. He used to see me pushing my mom in a wheelchair for years.
That's right.
He never came to me and say anything about he know who my dad was.
Well, it wasn't my place to walk up and say, hey, I know your daddy, or this, or that. They never asked me anything.
If you knew that, why you couldn't say, hey, I talked to your dad today, and then I would question you, but he never said that.
I'm feeling bad because she hurt, but I'm speaking from my heart that I know. She needs to know the truth about this. I want her to know.
I need you to tell the truth about
I
this.
am, baby, I am.
I've been through cancer twice. By the grace of God, I'm still here, you know.
Amen. Yes.
When I was going through cancer, it was time for me to do a transplant after, like a year later. And I didn't have nobody. My mom not here. I don't know who my dad is. But then I was trying to get in contact with him because I needed a donor for my transplant, and he wasn't nowhere to be found. But then I was trying to get in contact with him because we was like on and off. We, contact each other.
Okay.
And so for me to contact him, I have to go through his one daughter in Alabama. She used to call me asking me if I know where he was. So I'm like, no. Like every time I turn around, it's like a number's changing.
Mr. Alexander's life seemed to be a little unstable.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then when you were dealing with your second bout of cancer, they said you needed a donor. And so you immediately thought, I need to find Mr. Alexander.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because since my mother's gone,
Yes.
I need to see if he's a match.
Yes, Your Honor.
And so you said to yourself, when I do find him or when I do speak to him the next time, we have to get a DNA test.
Yes, Your Honor. And
Take me to that day.
I picked him up. They told us in 2 to 3 days they'll let us know. 3 weeks went by, and I haven't heard anything. I called her back, and I'm like, okay, so what is it? And so she said he wasn't.
You had to call her back.
Yes.
She said there's been a mix-up and we'll call you back.
Yes.
And instead of her calling you back, you had to call her back.
Yes.
And then she says, I'm sorry, he's not your father.
Yes. Yes.
And at that time when the DNA testing happened, Mr. Alexander, do you remember speaking to Miss Washington and understanding why the DNA test was so important?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
And do you remember her telling you that they called back and the lab said that you were not her biological father?
Yes, Your Honor, I remember that. And we both felt that it was an undecided decision that they made on their behalf because it just didn't seem right.
Because after they tell you it's going to take 2 to 3 days, and then you don't hear anything for 3 weeks, and then you got to call them, they never call you. Do
No,
they ever
ma'am.
send you some paperwork?
No.
No, Your Honor,
Oh, no.
we didn't.
Clearly, that is not the laboratory we work with, and that is not how things are done.
No, that's right.
So at this time, because this is so complex, the court would like to call on the chief science officer for DNA diagnostics, Dr. Michael Baird. Jerome, will you please escort Dr. Baird into the courtroom?
We're gonna have you go right up next to the judge on the witness stand.
Hello, Dr. Baird.
Hello, Judge Lake.
This particular question is extremely fascinating and something we have never encountered in this courtroom, and I'd like to get a better understanding. Ms. Washington here has talked about a bout with cancer. She has been fighting and beating cancer. She had to have a transplant. Can you talk to us about how a bone marrow transplant can affect a DNA result?
Certainly. A bone marrow transplant is a life-saving procedure. So if the transplant is successful, all the blood cells that are produced in that individual will be those of the donor. So if you take a blood sample from a person who has a bone marrow transplant using a donor that's not them, in other words, a unrelated individual, you're going to get a DNA profile that will be different than the genome of that person. So when we saw that Ms. Washington had a bone marrow transplant, the red flags went up in our laboratory and we said we need to learn more about what kind of transplant she had.
Interesting. Now, if the previous laboratory where they had the DNA testing done was not aware of her bone marrow transplant or had not proceeded to then do the next level of discovery as you did, could this affect the result?
It could.
And we were not aware if that laboratory really took into account the transplant. This is fascinating. So just to be clear, Dr. Baird, when you're informed that a person has had a transplant, there's a different level of testing. There's a different test or a different way you go about it, procedure, than if they have never had a transplant.
Correct. So what we normally do is we get more information on what kind of transplant it was.
And so, in Miss Washington's case, how were you able to get a conclusion given the facts you were presented?
Well, when we looked into the type of transplant that she had, it turned out that she used her own cells in order to be the donor. So essentially, she was her own donor. So because she was using her own cells to replace the unhealthy cells that were present, the cancerous cells, there was no issue. And the results are indeed reliable.
Thank you so much. Now that you've heard all of that, what are you hoping for, Mr. Alexander? And are you hoping that Miss Washington is your biological
I am.
daughter? Are some of the tears because you feel guilty for all the years that you missed out on?
Yes, to a certain extent, it is that, I'm
Do
feeling
you
guilty.
feel like you let her down?
Yes, I do, to a certain extent.
I don't want him to be now.
Jerome, I'm ready for the results. These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics, and they read as follows. In the case of Alexander versus Washington, when it comes to 42-year-old Tish Washington, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Alexander, you are not the father. I'm very sorry, Miss Washington. Very sorry. Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Lord. I'm sorry. God bless you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry, too, girl. I'm sorry.
Wasn't around, so it don't matter.
I'm sorry.
It's put me through a lot.